And there you go.
There he is.
How do you do? Hey,
Hello.
Gordon, nice to meet you. Gordon, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, Jim.
Thank you. Hey, Sandy and Robin.
Hello.
Yeah, I was,
Welcome back.
thank you. Nice to be back. And I was just mentioning on the other line, I had gone on to the one that the link popped up for me. I was
Are
just
there other
mentioning.
people there?
No, that was the only
Oh,
one.
okay.
So I was recording the message, in hopes that as people dropped in, that they'd be able to catch up. But no worries, because we're starting now.
Yay.
Welcome to Going Pro. Something I wanted to mention, not so much China, I'll mention that in a minute, but Going Pro, when I set this up in the first place, the whole point of it was for you, as you got involved in it, to be making the transition as if you had been an amateur doing something for a long time and said, that's it, I'm going pro, I'm all in, right? So that day, what happens is the standards you operate by rise, the expectations you have of yourself rise, the requirements you put on yourself increase. And so you take everything a whole lot more seriously and you become more intentional about it. And so I've talked in all these various sessions about intentionality. And if you'll remember, and you will, I began with the question, what do you want? And I repeated the question, what do you want? And I kept coming back to, what do you want? Because that really does drive it all.
Mhm.
There are three things that Going Pro achieves for you. Number one, clarity. Number two, confidence. And number three, courage. And the difference between confidence and courage is confidence just means you've got enough faith in yourself and your ability to go forward and
Mhm.
to not be second guessing or saying, if you guys will let me, no. Instead, you just boldly go forward, right? Courage means when things start falling apart, you stay the course because you believe in what you're doing, you figured it out, and you know you're on the right path. So let me review very quickly a couple of parts of this that I'd like you to think about in the next week or so. If you look at the various forms that are on our Facebook group page, in files, there are a number of things, too many. It's like information overload, but the number of things to download and to do in writing. Number one, future you.
Yeah.
Because that asks
Thank
you
you.
like 9 or 10 different questions about what are you going to look like in the future. Number two is reputation creation, which is simply the future you exercise posed through the eyes of the various viewers, friends, family, clients, coworkers, prospects, colleagues, even competitors. What do you want them thinking and saying about you? All right. Number three, what one thing, if you did it exclusively for the next 5 years, would transform your life? Well, that is a spreadsheet with built-in calculations. And so you take a look, and I've seen yours in the past. You take a look at all the different things that you could be doing and that you're probably spending some time on now anyway, right? And you say, okay, what's the payoff? What's the value? What's my feeling about it? Is it scalable? Is it something I could sell ultimately? Is it something that takes a lot of time, a little time, and so forth? And you get all these variables across there, and then it kind of gives you, these are your winners. Not that you should choose them, but that it at least narrows the field for you so you can make a better decision about what do you want, right? Next one is passion and purpose. I've shown you in the past my little card that has my passion and purpose statement on it, and that's kind of a mantra thing, for keeping focused. Well, as you go through the questions in that passion and purpose exercise, it gets you even more clear on what do you want. And then there's another question that I asked early on, what's your aspiration level? As it relates to this path you've chosen, are you you want to be competent, you want to be excellent, you want to be an expert, you want to be a celebrity, a leading authority, a star, right? Because that determines how much work and how much all in kind of a factor you have to have. And then greatest earning opportunity. So all of that up to now was about what do you want? Well, greatest earning opportunity flips the table and says, forget about what you want. Show me the money, right? Where's your greatest earning opportunity? Because it might not be something you want, but it might be, like in Robin's case, it might be you say, I don't care if it's going to pay off, I'll do it in the short term, right? And then you leverage back to what your other opportunities would be. But that's an exercise designed to help you isolate through the client's eyes what it is that you do that they value enough to pay for it. And there's also a separate sheet related to that called what your clients value, what do they value? And then one more in the mix, and that is defining your top 1%. If you're going after the higher or highest levels of your chosen path, then how do you define, isolate, identify, document, and track the top 1% in your chosen path so that you know you're staying on it? So all that's just a big way of getting you to the answer to what do you want?
Yeah.
This
What
week,
a excellent exercise for the beginning of the year. It really is. So
yeah, and you can print out each of those and get to them when you feel like it. You know, it's not something like you think, God, homework. Oh, thanks, Jim. I needed more. No, these are just tools, each of which leads you to the same destination, hopefully, in a different way that give you a stronger and stronger clarity. Because once you've got that clarity,
Mhm.
you know, game over. It's yours. You're unstoppable. I went to China, and David Chu, my agent, said we're going to Nanyang, and Nanyang, a mere 5.7 million people. So naturally,
Wow.
I'd never heard of it. And yeah, and I mean, the cities that size are just all over China. There's like 30 of them that are in the multi-millions,
Wow.
and no one's ever heard of them. So we went there, and of course it was like before. You know, I was treated as if I I were the first human to arrive on Earth, and Earth was celebrating that appearance. Wow.
Wow.
Very cool.
And
Very
so
cool.
I go into the meeting room, which is a big theater, and it's set up for 600 people, which was just right. And it was one of those that had dining in the first levels of the theater, and then booths, and then general seating going back, Robin, kind of like in Texas theater.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it was packed, and it was a huge show, and it had dancers and performers and special effects. And I mean, there was one point in the evening where they handed out see-through umbrellas to everyone in the front rows of the audience. And then they came
That's a
and
good idea.
put gauze over our tables, you know, where our food and refreshments were. And it snowed indoors.
Oh, wow.
It snowed all over us.
Wow.
So it was soap bubbles or something like that, but still, what? And
Yeah.
so that happened. And then they came and they cleaned all that out very rapidly and efficiently. And then a singer came out, and then they had a chugging contest. The singer at the end of his talk grabs a beer and chugs it on stage, and people in the audience stand up and go, "Hey!" And they
Oh
do
my
it. And it's like,
Is that part of your rider and your contract? Get everybody pretty wasted before I come on?
no, this was after me. But
Oh, you should have done it before you. That was how you
I
got your
know.
standing ovation.
Phew. And of course, I did the whole thing through my interpreter, Kitty.
Yeah.
But wow, what an experience. So be sure and look at those Facebook
Yeah.
photos,
I
and
started seeing it. It's amazing.
just mind-boggling.
Wow.
And the happy news, I'm going back in April. I wish I could take you guys with me.
Yeah. What's great, it's like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Of
a
course,
kind
I
of,
came home with a cold. So my nose has been running since I got,
Uh,
home, but not, not COVID kind of.
No, but I'm just saying that's kind of celebrations that were enjoyed before that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. But it's back. No, and by the way, at dinner, dinner's always a big round table with a huge, what we call a lazy Susan in the center. And I did, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those. But the one big dinner after my speech, the VIP dinner where everybody, WTF, we take photo. Everybody's paid in advance to get their moment with teacher. And so I did all that. And then there's this drink that they call mutai. And mutai is more or less pure grain alcohol. Not exactly, but
Yeah.
easily over 150. So it's serious stuff. And it's a big deal over there. And at this corporate dinner, they have mutai on the turntable and little shot glasses in front of every person.
Oh my God.
And so the host, stands up and everybody gets poured one. And he said, how do I, and he drinks it. And somebody says, ganbei, which means dry glass.
Oh,
And so I sipped it, and then the guy challenged me and I said, what the heck? I've already given my speech today. Okay, well, that's good. But then the other guy,
Oh
there's 20
gosh, here we
people at
go.
the table, 20. The other guy, teacher, and he's toasting me and all that. So I thought, okay, I'm good for maybe 3 of these. I'm done, and then I drink some kind of a yogurt based thing in between them to soften the blow. And sure enough, I was able to get out of there intact and not woozy headed. But jeepers, what a culture. I am glad ours is not like that.
Wow.
From the stage with people in the audience standing up and everybody screaming and
God.
yelling about it. They think it's so cool.
That's great. Now, do you have an interpreter with you all the time? So at these dinners, she's with you and helping you communicate? Wow.
Yeah.
that's good.
And when there's a moment that she's not around or David, my agent's not around, then we go to a translation app.
Hmm.
And so that's helpful. And
Wow.
then I've got a little translation machine that I can carry with me. But wow. So tell me what's going on with you folks. And Gordon, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have and learn more about your situation. But Robin, start us off and then I'll go to Sandy.
Well, I've had a good week. Victoria has brought me back in to coach her. She's got 9 engagements in between now and the 28th of June of January.
Good for
And
her.
yeah, and
Victoria LeBon.
yes,
Yeah.
Hall of Fame speaker. She's brilliant, but she's got multiple ideas, and she's got multiple audiences, so all of them need something different. And she struggles with that, quite honestly. She's a performer, she's an entertainer, and a Broadway, personality type of entity, and very articulate, very smart, and she's gets overwhelmed in a lot of ways. And we've been close for many, many years. I've done a lot of videos for her and coached her over the years. But it's been a very fun meeting every morning at 7:30 for an hour and a half and just going through this and trying to keep all of this, clear in her head. But it's brought the joy back in my heart about coaching again. And so I'm going to continue that as well as, getting back into my speaking world. But it's just been insightful. Although she just got all this is, very in-house, but she just got a comment from her agent that just came back and said, listen, she's doing a 2-day event, one for leaders, for 80 leaders at this large fleet company, and then 500 of their salespeople the next day, 2 different presentations. And they found her, reached out to her, paying her a lot of money, and now they're coming back and saying, okay, we need to know your talking points. We want to see your talking points. She's already had 3 conversations with them. And so they're saying, she goes, well, I'd like to get on a call with everybody. Let me just walk you through. Because no, everyone's really busy right now. Just send us something in a Google Doc so we can comment and everything. We want to send it out to all of our leaders to let them, weigh in. Wow. Yes.
Been there.
Been there. I've been there as well.
This is one of those things where some guy from HR, for example, or legal, has stepped into the mix and said, well, we need, I want the entire thing to happen before it happens so that I can go in and critique it and change it. This can be a hard decision because I think it's a time when you have to stand up to the client and say no.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. And thank heavens it worked. I didn't lose engagements over it. But I tell them, look, I'm a professional at this. I do it all the time. And you came to me because you'd seen me do it. And I can do it really well. So the variable is not whether I can do this really well. The variable is, do I understand who you are? Do I understand your people, their circumstances? Am I going to adapt this appropriately to them? And I'll be happy to talk with you about that. But I do not do scripted presentations. And so if you have to have that, I'm sorry, but I'll just have to say no.
We just got off the phone right before I got on here with that conversation. And she's had that before as well. Most of us have. She's had some pretty serious ones.
Mhm.
And they're paying her a great deal of money.
Yeah.
But for them to have already decided that, book her, and then want to get in there and do this, again, this is like you were talking about. It's a lower division. It's the HR division that's getting in that we're not a part of the idea. The CEO brought the name to them. So, and I counseled her to do exactly that. So over the weekend, she's putting together just a few bullet points just to reiterate what she's already given them and going to send that to them and then have a conversation with them Monday. But if it's any kind of pushback from that, then it's going to be, thank you very much, but no thank you.
Right. And I think you have to, because otherwise you end up going there and you're trying to get it right instead of trying to do it well.
It goes all crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The few times in my career out of 3,500 engagements that I've, what I think bombed, it was when I was trying to please somebody like that instead of trying to do what I felt was the right thing.
Yeah.
And
Well, we're on the same page there, and she is too, but she was pretty freaked 2 hours ago, hour and a half ago, when she first got that note because of her previous experience. And they ended up parting ways before the event 8 days later because the HR division went against what the CEO said, because she asked, I'm going to call the CEO and run this by him. This is who I've talked to. She called him or sent a text, can I have 300 seconds to talk to you about something really quick? He said, absolutely. Came in and said, they're wanting me to end my program, lose my whole finale, and talk about the pressures that we're all under. And we got to be better and fight pressure, because pressure is what's going to keep us going, but it's going to tear us down. And he goes, absolutely not. You're not, no, don't do that. Well, that's what they're telling me to do. No, go back and tell them. She went back and told him. The lady that was leading this group was ticked. She said, okay, we're done. And they let her go. They'd already paid her too, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was 9,000 people in that audience.
Wow.
And they let her go 10 days before the show.
Unbelievable.
And the lady was fired.
The lady who let her go.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, at least they had the presence of mind to do that. But should have-
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's bizarre. But anyway, that was kind of it's been a fun week, 2 weeks now, I guess. I got one more week to go. But she's got 9 dates.
That's bizarre, but I think there's more of that's going to happen. I just see more of that.
Yeah. But she's a $25,000 to $40,000 speaker. And she's a Hall of Fame speaker.
Yeah.
And you bring someone like that in.
Yeah, you should
She's
want
all
everything they
over
have.
All over. There's videos galore of her. She's got TED Talk. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting, you know? But anyway.
Yeah. Well, thing is, the reason they hired her is because she's Victoria LeBaume.
Yeah,
So if she does not be Victoria, then she contradicts the reason she was hired,
exactly.
trying to
Exactly.
please a clerk.
And she also found out, she texted me just before we started here, that her agent called back and said, this is the first event these people have ever had with an outside speaker, which makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But still, oh my gosh.
yeah. Well, yeah. You can refer to some of the things in my speaker's agreement,
Yep.
my speaker's professional commitment,
Yep.
because that was designed for this purpose, to send it to a client and say, here's what I'll do in preparation. Here's what I'll do upon arrival. Here's what I'll do during my speech and not do. And because there are things they don't want you to do.
Right.
And here's what I'll do after the speech, and even after I get home.
Yeah.
And so I send that to them and I tell them, is there anything on there that causes you concern? No. Okay. Then let's let her rip. And if
Yeah.
they say, well, we want a transcript of your talk before you come, and we want you to
Get my paper.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, but wrong guy.
Yeah. She's about to go there as well because she has something similar, as
Yeah.
most of us do, but she's about
That
to go
goes
there.
back to my Harley Davidson experience. 'Cause, when the guy called me and he said, we're thinking about you and I want to come hear you speak. He had already heard
Oh,
me
that's right.
speak. And I told him, you don't want to come hear me speak because you'll say that was good, but that's not what we're looking for,
Yeah.
because it wasn't tailored to you. And he said, well, okay, what do I want? I said, you want to know if I get it who Harley Davidson is. So put a motorcycle under me and let's ride.
Yeah.
And that was the deal maker,
Yeah.
and it was the coolest sales call I ever had.
Yeah. I
3
love
days
that
during
story.
the Rocky Mountains. And the experience at the speech was awesome, and nobody had any concerns, even though
Yeah.
that went through 7 translators into different languages. Amazing.
Wow.
Andy, bring us up to date. You and Gordon are doing a project,
Yes.
and I've seen the ad on the back of the magazine, and I don't know if you saw my email, but we get that
Yeah, thank
magazine,
you.
so it's kind of cool.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
tell your brother if he ever needs an article in my niche, I'm happy to contribute something they could put in there.
Oh, great. I'll let him know that. Thank
bet.
you very much. He's a realtor and real estate broker in West Los Angeles,
Mhm.
Santa Monica area. So yeah, the pool is bigger there than Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's challenging for me too, because and I think even Thousand Oaks has more activity than our town of Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
But-
When I looked at it after 9/11, I created the 101 Leaders Alliance to teach ground level leadership skills to people that we could drive by bicycle to see them if necessary.
Mhm.
And I looked at the population from Calabasas to Carpinteria, and not over the hill to Simi Valley, but just that stretch of 101. And at the time, there were like 700,000 people total in that little corridor. And I think it was 12 different incorporated communities where there would be a mayor and a city council and a school board and all the other things, sheriff and such. And so the whole effort we did for about 8 years with the 101 Leaders Alliance was focused on that stretch of 101. So you might think of those kind of parameters when you're
Mhm.
looking at your accessible market. Because
Right.
after Calabasas, you're getting into San Fernando Valley and the whole world changes.
Yeah, right. Do you think Thousand Oaks people would come to Santa Barbara to come to a live event?
I did.
Okay.
I don't
That's a
think
good sign.
I don't think it would be something easy for them, but if it's appealing enough, you'll get them. I was there, I spoke several months ago, in Santa Barbara at the music.
Academy.
Yeah,
Music Academy.
yeah,
Yeah.
over by the Four Seasons. Yeah.
Montecito.
And there were people that came from LA and from all around to attend that. So, you know, they'll do it if the draw is strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing is
Yeah.
it's got to have payoff value for them or
Right.
cool factor. That one was a futurist, a Pacific Coast Futures Conference. So it
Mhm.
had a cool factor. You know, if you go to that,
Mm.
you're smarter and cooler than anybody else.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that want that.
Yeah. And, you know, if it's a Hall and Oates concert, you know, the people would tend to go to Santa Barbara. I did.
Uh-huh.
But
Would.
if it's something that's generic, nah, not so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my concern because I just wanted to make sure when we do a live event, it's going to pay off and it's going to have enough people and
Yeah.
all that. So the info sessions are to serve to get the word out, help people to recognize value. And, you know, having Gordon to be able to demonstrate, you know,
Mhm.
the power of that and how we can apply it. So I think, yeah, I'm working on like that exercise you had for the clarity, because you know, I wanted to serve like this, you know, personal to professional, but the monetizing part, I really think it's got to start with the organization and businesses that have a budget, HR budget and all that. And then filter down to the individuals.
Well, and when you say HR budget, you're usually talking about bigger businesses.
Right.
And I don't see that that's your ideal market. It seems that the smaller businesses where you've got direct access to the decision makers is
Mm.
your real accessible, immediately accessible market.
Would
And
that be
there's
like,
something that I want to comment on is I think your greatest strength, I don't know if greatest is the best word, but
uh-huh,
a strength of yours
mm-hmm,
is your personal direct involvement with people. You know, one to one, you're irresistible. You know, it's fun to work with you. It's clear you know what you're doing. You do it well. Um, and I think that's an edge that you can leverage. And I would just build lots of FaceTime into whatever model you're crafting, you know, with the expo and beyond. Um, Another thing, and this is for you, Robin, as well. Sandy has a secondary passion, and that is helping people who are doing homeschooling.
Mhm.
And of course, that's harder to monetize. I think sponsorships are the one of the best ways to monetize that. So you go to organizations that would sell to homeschooling people. And in Robin, in your case, whatever it is, your event is going to be around, you know, go to any entity that would naturally sell to that group of people and seek a
Mhm.
sponsorship. When I did that for the 101 Leaders Alliance, I went to Sherwood Country Club. Of course, I lived there at the time, but still, it was a expensive place to hold a meeting. And I said, we've got a crisis. You know, 9/11 happened and we've got to get our people in this corridor together so that we can survive if this turns out to be World War III or something. Would you guys donate the meeting room and the catering? Because it's not going to be a big meal event. It's going to be a meeting event with meal service. And they said, we'll do X. And they came up with rooms for free and minimal catering. And then I went to other organizations around Thousand Oaks and some of the other communities, and I got a sponsor for the meal. And then I got a sponsor for the wine, a local winery. And then I got a sponsor for the brochures. And then, you know, so I had to make a lot of sales calls, but I did it. And we ended up with, I don't know, maybe 12 sponsors. And every person who came, they either paid to enroll or somebody hosted their enrollment.
Hmm.
So I said, we have a limited number of hosted enrollments available. Now, in a couple of cases, these were people I wanted there and I was willing to just waive the fee. But I wasn't going to say, okay, look, come free as my guest. I said, let me put your name in the hat for one of the hosted enrollments because I'd like to see you there. Oh, yes, please do. You know, it made it way more special to them.
Sure.
Then I went to some other people and I said, I know you're not going to be involved, you're not going to be there, but would you be willing to host a couple of enrollments for other people for a few $100s? Sure, you know, we'll take 3 or whatever. So I had lots of people from local businesses involved on one level or another, minimal commitments and some more substantial. And then we ended up, NBC News came out and covered the event, you know, I mean, not national, but certainly regional. And everybody that came got a goodie packet, like a foot deep with all these different things that we were giving them. And the way I did it was I gave it to them each time they came back to their seat. So here's a gift when you arrive. Wow, that's cool. This is going to be great. And then here's a gift now that you've been on break and you're back to your seat. And here's a gift now that you're
I
at
love
lunch.
it.
I
Yeah.
love that too.
Just kept drip feeding these special gifts all day long. And then we had the wine and cheese reception in the evening. And I had more gifts and I had some entertainers come in and do things like close-up magic and stuff like that. And so it was just an awesome, very effective day. Now, doing a day like that for whatever purpose you do it, in my case, it was to teach ground level leadership and get all the local nonprofits to say, hey, we're in, you know, and we'll encourage everybody we know to be involved in this. When you do that, it's not the event that counts. You know, the event was the courtship dance. So what counts is what happens after that. And what I was doing was enrolling people in a year-long series of 8 seminars.
Mm.
And in some cases, I had to go out and make in-person calls to get that done. But, you know, it survived for a while. And we ran it in limited editions over about an 8-year period.
Nice.
That's
So
a good
just some
point.
thoughts, you know, that relate to what you're doing. Just make sure that the expo leads to something else.
Right. And
Okay.
I'm thinking even these info sessions, there can be a call to action in addition to their interests for the future expo, but meantime, they can, you know, work with either of us for the programs that we offer.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like the most universally appealing thing you can offer to get people into a dialogue with you about an expo or something related is a diagnosis, a free diagnostic
Hmm.
session, you know,
Mhm.
with Gordon or Sandy or whatever. And that gives you a chance to determine their needs and then make some recommendations and prescriptions. And it just leads
Good.
into more. And by the way, I'd like you to start, both of you, start thinking in terms of not doing everything yourself. Who else has an interest in this that could assist you? It's like the other day I was preparing for my talk in China and I was getting a little nervous about part of it. And I thought, wait a minute, Jim, let the audience do it. And so instead of thinking, how do I fill this part of the time with magical content from me, I'm going to throw it over to them and let them do it as a little discussion moment, you know, and then give it back to me. And that just, that takes the load off. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
shoulders.
And they love it. They love that engagement and the interaction.
Yep,
It makes it more memorable.
exactly.
Yes.
By the way, memorable, Craig Ingram, part of our group here, is winging his way to Dubai right now. He's
Wow.
attending a
Oh,
big medical industry, a medical profession expo in Dubai. Wow.
wow.
Most expensive place on earth
Yeah. Well, Gino had
and the
the
most exotic.
privilege of being there, taking the first dinosaur to Dubai and putting it together at the Abu Dhabi airport.
Wow,
Yeah. That
that's
was,
pretty
Wow.
substantial.
yes, totally. Well, I'd love, yeah, Coach to share what, uh, he'd like to see, you know, the potential is also for him to find some clients here in the US and,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, Gordon, over to you. Give us an idea of what your world is. And if you have any questions we can address, we're happy to work on that. Unmute, please. You're muted. Gordon.
Sorry about that.
No?
No
I was
problem.
rustling some papers here, so I didn't want the noise to overcome your conversations. I'm from the sporting background. I've been a former professional hockey player and hockey coach for over 40 years, and international best-selling author, a book called Become a Person of Influence. I've also got four-time $1 million roundtable sales in 4 different industries, and just done a lot of cool things. Had the opportunity to connect with a lot of really cool people. I'm a certified human behavior specialist and master trainer in basically the human behavior language of DISC. And we teach people about their personalities, who they are, what they do, how they do it, and why, and how to make better connections with other people around them, how to know themselves and how to know people, how to engage them in any particular industry. And it's universal in its application.
Sure. By the
So
way,
that's the
who do you use as your back end for the
Dr. Robert Rome. Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay.
Dr. Robert Rome is my
I know him.
mentor.
I know him.
Yeah, Dr. Rome and myself have been together over 20 years, about 22 years. I'm certified in his practice, and I think we've got over 3,000 people certified under him. But there's only about 20 of us or 25 of us that are master trainers, and so I help certify different people that want to get certified in the field of human behavior through the DISC model under Dr. Rome's training.
Tony
So
Allen was my former business partner. Tony has assessments247.com
yeah,
and does the back end for like Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and Brian Tracy and such. Yeah.
yeah, it's really a door opener. It's a foundational door opener to get people to talk about stuff like communicating, sales, leadership,
Yep.
team building, those types of things. So there's about 35 different pathways that we can take people on, and that's the premise. So I created a program called Communicate to Connect. My coaching program was originally called Coaching to Connect. How to coach to connect to your athletes, how to coach to connect to your employees, how to coach to connect to your clients, to your church, to your students, whatever it is. And so for the last 15, 20 years, been building a business there. And Dr. Rome actually won a World Series with the Arizona Diamondbacks back in 2001, which was of great interest to me because of my sports background. So during one of my certifications, I asked him to if I could take him to dinner and he could show me how to do that. Because he had a big ring on, and I said, "Well, what's that ring all about?" Because as a sports guy, that kind of appealing to me. We call them knuckle dusters, but especially in hockey, because we don't really have a game until we're fighting. So we went to dinner, and he showed me exactly how he did that, and I thought I can replicate that. I can create a market. I can create an environment where we can teach teams on how to do that from a recruiting perspective and bringing people into organizations, especially in the NCAA and college and university ranks, where you have those athletes for 4 years, where you can really develop a systemic process where you can create championship environments. And that's exactly what we did. So, Dr. Rome has one ring. Well, I ended up getting 10 rings. I've got all these rings from all these different organizations like Notre Dame University and St. Lawrence and junior college and multiple sports. It's not just hockey. It's hockey, basketball, baseball, and soccer.
Wow.
So we've been able to replicate the process and then transfer that, as Sandy was saying, if we started, like, say, in a business venue, where I'm teaching corporations about how to lead effectively through personalities and character recognition, attitude, and behavior, they come to me and they say, hey, do you do this for families? Do you do this for schools? Do you do this for, and I said, absolutely, it's universal. And
Yeah.
so we've been able to transfer that out into a real field of application. So that's where the Communicate to Connect process came in. I created a whole workbook outline called Communicate to Connect, and it's applicable to multiple fields. So when Sandy and I were chatting, I said, well, why don't we do a business expo on Communicate to Connect? And we'll gear it towards you understanding who you are. How do you want to make a good connection with people around you, just to start there? And then we'll do one specific for business, and we'll talk about leadership and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we came up with the concept. I've done it before with other organizations, and it's been very successful. So that's kind of where we're at. And Santa Barbara seemed like I had U.S. accounts before COVID, and traveled extensively for almost 20 years throughout the US. And that's where most of my clients were. For some reason, Canada doesn't like to build their trainings and so on. They have no real money applied to budgets for training. They do, but it's all systemic. It's not on the people side. It's all on the system side.
Yeah.
And so most of my training is really geared towards helping people, the people skills, soft skills, that type of thing. So I ended up working in the US for the last 10 to 15 years. So when COVID happened, I lost all my revenue and all my clients. And so
Yeah.
I had to.
So did I.
So did I.
Overnight. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm on the rebuild stage right now. I'm working on that, rebuilding clients. I got 12 clients right now. They're all stateside. And I'm doing them mostly virtual because I also need a TN visa. So I have to reapply for my TN visa to work in the States. So that's underway, but it costs money to get that as well. So yeah, so that's why I'm looking at this
lineup of rings I've seen. Man,
yeah.
that's a bunch of hardware.
Well, what it does is it provides credibility. And I say to people, I don't do that. I don't show you these rings to impress you, but to impress upon you that the systemic process we have on understanding people actually works.
Yeah.
So, when you think of recruiting an athlete to Notre Dame University for a free free schooling, basically a scholarship at $72,500,
Yeah.
you want to make the right choice.
Yeah, you do. By the way,
Not only do you want to have the right athlete, but you want to have the right person.
Yeah, I had
So
the
the
chance.
same goes for companies. The same goes for any event that you want to do, right? I'm sure you do pretty much the same, but it's a systemic process to understand how to get the right people as a right fit for the right organizations.
One day I was on the plane with Vince Lombardi Jr. and he had his dad's ring on.
Yeah.
And he said, "You want to try it?" Yeah, absolutely. So I got, ring number 1, which was so cool
Yeah, that is cool.
to that thing.
They've
Of course,
grown in size. You look back to the 19th.
today's rings are like this.
Yeah, yeah,
huge.
exactly.
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions about the Notre Dame rings because we have back-to-back championships with Notre Dame, and so you don't get too many people that really get to see a Notre Dame ring.
Wow.
Nice.
Awesome.
So I get a lot of questions on the Notre
Yeah.
Dame rings. It's kind of cool. So it's just a note of interest, and like I said, I don't wear them to impress people, but to impress upon people.
Wayne Gretzky was my neighbor when I lived at Sherwood Country Club. I'd see him at the club every once in a while. I can't claim I know him. I mean, he recognizes me and we speak, but that's about the extent of knowing
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky. That you could say, "Is that Jim Cathcart?" And he'd say, "Yeah, probably." That's about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, bravo. Do you have any questions for us that we could be valuable for you in this
I think
context?
you hit on a couple of them. Our last conversation, Sandy and I together, I said, there's no substitute for face-to-face communication. When people can feel your passion for what you do, they want to get involved. So it's, sending out marketing material and emails and all this, I find it falls way short of, what you're trying to do, especially for a live business expo where you want to bring people in. I said, let the vendors end up paying we'll get 4 or 5 vendors just to basically and they'll pay for the room. Let them get them to base their revenues and pay for the room. And then we say, okay, well, we're going to allow you to come to the training for just cost of material. So it's going to cost you $250 for the vendorship and another $75 for the material, but you're going to get the training for free.
Yeah.
So you just have to pay for the actual books and the material that you're going to get. And will you bring people? Will you be able to, and we'll network through them and then start networking through the local companies in the area. So I said, there's no substitute for face-to-face. So that's, I think, the next step for us is to be able to equip Sandy. And I said, oh, look, I'll even make phone calls. I have no problem making phone calls to local people, but you're there. You know, I'm not in Santa
That's
Barbara.
the thing, Sandy, if you're going door to door, throughout Santa Barbara, to people, and doing the feedback at the end of an assessment, or, doing quick little, collaboration workshops and things like that, I think that's going to be valuable. And like Gordon's saying, if you don't think it's effective to charge a fee for some of the things you do, charge for the things you're providing them, and let that be your fee. But I would suggest you have a minimal fee, for a show up, so that every time you show up, it's going to be worth X to you, and then you'll get additional things based on the number of people involved. Over the
And
years,
the information sessions too, Jim, I just created with an associate of mine in Alabama. I used to live in Alabama for 3 years, so I worked with a couple of people there, and we just created a very simple 4-question initiating DISC assessment. So you can just answer 4 questions and just get a real preliminary understanding of who you are. I said, hey, you want to know the depth and breadth of real reach of that profile? Come to the expo. We're going to teach you how to use that and make it work for you. So during the info sessions, I'm going to offer that up as a freebie. There's value there. So they're going to get something to walk away with. And it'll kind of tease them a little bit, but it's, the assessments are usually $20, $25, but it's 6 to 10 pages of information that really go into depth on how to communicate to connect. So we will use a little gift like that at the beginning to say, hey, we're going to give you an opening profile. Just go through it, 4 quick questions. It's going to take literally 5-6 minutes. You're going to know right away who you are. And now we can teach you what to do with who you are.
there you go. Good. So Robin, do you have any instruments or tools that you use like that?
Not officially, but I go through questionnaires talking about, from a speaking standpoint, obviously, when I'm working with speakers, relative to the industry and what their desires are, what their purpose is, what their experience is, things like that. It's not a corporate program. It's something that I've just done on myself. So it's got 16 questions that I go through with them.
Okay. Well, you're able to use my master license with assessments 24/7 to be able to provide a whole suite of assessments on emotional intelligence, DISC, sales IQ, all the other things, if you choose to pursue any of that.
Okay, thank you. Gordon and Sandy, let me ask you, what's the number that you're looking at as far as your attendance? What's your goal for attendance for this event?
We're looking at least 50 would be great, right, Gordon? Isn't that what
Well, I think a baseline of 50, but if we could, I would think I've done these before. And so a good, very comfortable number in terms of putting some money in our pockets would be anywhere from 75 to 100. So I'm saying, 80 to 100 would be the ideal sweet spot. But 50 would be a good starting point for the first expo. But, and the price point's actually very low. When we did that on purpose, just to bring a notoriety and an understanding. So $297 for the whole day. Try to get, Chick-fil-A to sponsor the breakfast and then have a break for lunch, and then have a special leadership function at the end of the day for an additional fee. Just a little bonus session of, for $49, stay on for the business training. So we're targeting a minimal 50, but certainly 80 to 100, I think, would be the sweet spot for this. The venue's not too large. It's a comfortable number. It's manageable.
Where's your venue? What are you using?
I'm looking at work zones. We look at the hotel that you spoke at.
Yeah.
That's something that I think maybe potentially in the future. But for now, work zones, I know the co-owner, and it is located at Paseo Nuevo Mall. It already has people that go there for business, but she said most of those are independent people that aren't looking to socialize, but they are totally equipped. It's just been recently remodeled.
Yeah.
Has all the technology, has all,
It's a co-working space,
the
basically.
co-working space that
So
they
it's like
have.
Kickle has here in Austin.
Oh,
where we
yeah.
met Yeah, yeah,
It's also got potential for breakout rooms too, which we want to have
Yeah.
a couple of breakout rooms as well.
yeah, good. And, yeah, got
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, she's
Um,
actually offered that I can use some of those rooms at no fee for her people to
Nice. And by
do.
the way, when you say, when she says things like, they're independent people and not looking to socialize, anybody that's looking to grow business has to socialize.
They
And
should.
it's not like
They
they've got a
should.
choice. Maybe you're going to socialize only through the screen. You're going to have to socialize it. You got to step up sooner or later and say, hello, and deal with them. Christina is not able to be with us today, but I want to acknowledge her and tell her we're thinking about her here in this. So any of you who watch this later, or those of you here today, if something occurs to you after and you go, oh, should I ask? Please do. So reach out to me. Something else I've got going on I wanted to make you aware of. My political views are conservative, and so I was invited to be the business coaching division, more or less, for a Red States referral network. And the Red Referral Network is headed by Chris Widener in conjunction with Dinesh D'Souza. And they
Oh,
are forming these local networks, like your business network, Sandy, or like
Uh-huh.
BNI, Ivan Meisner's. And they're going to do it nationwide. And the idea behind it is do business with people that support the causes you believe in. So it'd be, a similar thing for Jewish businesses or for Catholics or for name your category, religious or otherwise. So he said to me, would you do an 8-week program, online business coaching for it? And so that's launching in February. And I've got
Oh,
that could turn out to be a pretty big deal.
yeah.
And if they get the kind of traction they're seeking, then they're going to have tens of thousands of members of local groups nationwide before long. And loving that. So that's just a cross my fingers and
great.
work and see how it goes. It doesn't require me to do anything. It doesn't have any direct political implications or duties, but it's it's dealing with people who primarily would vote red.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Great. We need that.
yeah.
Of those guys.
There you go. And then I've got another thing coming up in February, and that is Victor Antonio, who authored a book called Sales Ex Machina, AI in sales. He is a very successful speaker.
I like him. He's good. He's
Yeah.
really good.
And he considers relationship selling one of the premier works in the field of sales, and said so before we even met in person last summer at the National Speakers Convention. He said so in his keynote speech. He was showing all these books over the years building up to today, and then he said, and the OG of sales, Jim Cathcart, relationship selling, and there's my book on screen, and I'm
That's great.
in the audience going, oh my God. So afterwards, I talked with him in the hallway and he said, we ought to do something together. And I said, we ought to co-author the next iteration of relationship selling. And so we have. It's pretty much done. And now it's going to go to the printer and get all formatted and everything. And we're launching in February. So that'll be exciting.
Very cool.
Came out,
Yeah.
my first book under that title came out in 1985. And
Oh
here
my
we are, 2024, coming out
Oh
with the
my
next
God.
one. So, but that'll be a mainstream book. And I've got high hopes for it. I think the subtitle is Treating Human Connections as Business Assets
Yeah.
and Managing them accordingly, of course. And then one other thing, I'm going to Key West. Gordon, you'll know this. Dave Kaufman.
Yep.
Dave Kaufman had me at his EdgeCon conference in Nashville last fall. and was it, yeah, last fall. And he said, I want you to come to one of my retreats. And it's coming up February 12, 13, 14, 15 in Key West. So I'll be down there and with a very small group of people, uh, hanging out in shorts and t-shirts and going
Nice.
deep sea fishing and things like that in between sessions. And I'll be teaching them the acorn principle concepts and having them assess themselves and values and intellect and background imprint and all those other things, velocity. So,
Cool.
yeah, exciting things. Well,
24.
any other quick questions as we conclude today?
What's the date, Sandy, you and Gordon have now looked to as far as the expo?
Well, I don't know yet. Yeah, because Gino and I found out we've got some traveling, and so yeah, I guess once I start seeing what the interest is through our info sessions, and I'm gonna reach out to more organizations and see how it can go. Then we'll set the date, but the sooner the better, because of course we have to secure the place.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I
We
would say,
targeted March 15th,
Yeah.
which is a Friday. We wanted to do, I felt it was best to do it on a business day, not on a weekend.
Yeah.
Because businesses make
I
time
would
for
agree with
that.
you, Gordon. Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
so that was the target date, but it looks like we're gonna have to reorganize our time accordingly, because I'm coming in from Canada. And yeah, we just got to try and coordinate our
Good.
but
Well, Sandy, I recommend that you don't let a day go by that you don't profile somebody. So every day have a conversation with one person minimum
Mhm.
about DISC.
Okay.
And that creates momentum for you. And it opens all the other doors. And if that's the only thing you're talking about for a while, you know, what's the one thing that if you did that exclusively for an extended time would solve all your problems? That may well be it.
Okay. Thank you. I
You
need an
bet.
I'd be on
assignment.
social as much as possible as well in your region, talking about it.
Uh-huh.
Your
Yeah.
face and Gordon's face out there talking about it, teasing the idea and make it consistent with content that's enticing, intriguing, and tell him that Kenny Loggins is going to come and do a home concert
Okay.
for everybody since he's retired now, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right. That's a
And-
great tip.
And call Kenny and do a DISC on him.
Yeah,
Hey,
he's local down the
yeah.
street.
Yeah. I
From you
had, when
guys.
we were doing the Acorn Principle assessment
Uh-huh.
for a couple of years back in the 90s, I had all kinds of celebrities coming into that. I mean, even Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, he discovered me somewhere online and ended up getting his own personality assessment using the Acorn profile.
Oh,
Pretty
yeah,
wow.
fast.
people love to know about themselves. And not only that, the big thing is lots of people do assessments, but very few people teach how to apply them. And that's what we do. So we teach the
Good.
application principles of what do you do with this once you know what your profile is? How do
Yeah.
you make those human interactions and connections? Because not everybody's wired the same. We're similar, but we're not the same.
Mhm.
And so the distinction between who you are as an outgoing and reserved personality, as well as a transactional versus a relational personality, there can be some real fender benders. We talked about blind spot intervention, right? To make sure that we're not going to run into blind spots where we have those human fender benders, right? Because those don't go away very quickly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh. So
Good.
interesting, my daughter in Nashville, the extrovert of our daughters,
Yeah.
she finally took a DISC assessment because her friend said that if she took it, he would take it.
Yeah.
So I always thought, we thought that she was at DI like Gino, because they're very similar in that area. She has level, she was having a real hard time taking the assessment. I couldn't understand. It's like, why is it just, it's simple, just answer the questions.
Yeah.
And then after she came out level, would that be an indication that's because she says I can do all of them? She had a really hard time choosing which one she liked.
When I was doing the training on that, I would say to people, how many of you find yourself primarily in this category, that category, do the 4. And then I say, how many of you found yourself in all 4 categories? And the hands go up. And I say, that's called quadraphonic schizophrenia. And everybody has it. So, all
To one
4
degree or another.
patterns in every person that exists. It's just that there's a dominant pattern in each of us. And those that are unwilling to acknowledge that there's a dominant pattern are probably of what I call the thinker pattern, the C. And they're looking for clinical validation to prove it first, right?
Oh my gosh.
We
Yeah.
could get into that discussion for hours. I
Yeah.
know you do as well. Thank you for being here today. And I'm glad you and I are connected. Gordon, welcome. Nice to have you aboard today.
Yeah, it's
Thank
nice to meet you, Gordon. Great to hear about
Nice to meet
that.
you as well, Robin.
Bye,
Thanks.
Sandy.
Bye. Have a
See you,
great
Jimbo.
week.